Hi y'all, hi YouTubers. Now on this video, I'm gonna talk about music and how I used to do music back in my days in the 80s. Like starting from 1981. I got my very first cassette in 1981, and that's where my music life began, and my voice recording as well. So going on to those days, you know, like in 1981 versus today, or 1980s versus today, 2018, we're just gonna talk about like how I used to obtain music, or how I used to get music, or hear about the music. Well, back in our days, my brother was like really into the radio. It was a station called Mighty 690. It was an AM broadcast at 690. My brother, like, I guess just basically heard about that, and then that's where his love for music began, or that's where it was born, and that's where my love for music was born as well. So now, Mighty 690 was a big station back then, along with like Kiss FM and K Other 101, but I only knew Mighty 690 at the time. And so back in our day, before we got our very first tape recorder, my brother used to get my dad's radio, he used to steal my dad's radio, or just take my dad's radio, turn on the Mighty 690 and hear the music right there, right? My dad used to get mad at Hector, or Arnold too, because he used to get annoyed by the music, by the blaring music, so he would tell him to turn off the radio, That was back in the day. And probably maybe because of the batteries too, but so that was then, Hector around 1981, where it began. That's all we did. We listened to the radio, and that's that's the only way we used to listen to music. And that was our music right there. We did have a record player or stereo, but we just didn't know how to use it back then. It was my dad's 8-track player. We didn't know how to use it back then, so it was not even pertaining us, or it didn't even concern us. So, but then Hector and Arnold were really into the radio, and I would hear Mighty 690 all the time, and then with all the music, like The Tide is High, Rapture from Blondie, and then a song that I really loved back then. It was called it was by Billy Joel. It was The Way You Are. Like something like that. I loved that song. And then a hit song also was what's the name of that? Charlie Daniels Band. The Devil Went Down to Georgia. That was a big hit back then. And then we had a little comment about that, the bad word that the song had, like where the bitch word, that word bitch. We had a little comment about that, and then as kids. And then another song that was popular too was Whip It, a very popular song. Fame, I remember those songs. And then there's a lot of other songs. I can't think of them off the bat, but I do know that those are just some. And then I guess Emotions by what's her name? Samantha Sang. That type of music. I love that type of music, And then, well, anyway, that's just talking about what songs were hits at the time, like in the 80s, well, beginning of the 80s, And then it came later on that, Hector wanted this recording thing, because we went to my cousin's house like one day, and then he saw this recording thing, tape recorder, as we call them. It was like one of these, but it was like a single speaker model, those typical single speaker ones, the monophonic ones. And our cousin had one, this girl, that she had one, and And then that's when I also discovered voice recording. And that's when my cousin was playing a newscast, like playing and like making a voice recording of us, like pretending that we're newscasters, and then we would play the tape back. And this is where my videotaping and recording life had began. This is where it was born, 1981. It was born in me since then. And then when I first learned about the recording onto cassettes, especially our voices, I thought that shit was so cool. That was the coolest thing in my entire life that I ever experienced. And now I wanted one of these recording things. I really wanted one. Hector and Arnold wanted one of these recording things for Christmas, 1980. So, but I mean, so later on, going on to 1981, that's when Hector got his dream, his wish. He got this recording thing, this tape recorder, radio cassette recorder for his birthday, February 1981. He was 12 years old, and he got a tape recorder. It's not like this one, but it was like a smaller one. It was like a single speaker. It was a Sony. It was like a Sony tape recorder. A single speaker. And I remember that my mom and my dad, I went with my mom and my dad to buy this present for Hector, and my mom and my dad paid $69 for that, and $1981 dollars, so it's equivalent to like $160 today's money. And then along the way, my dad bought Hector batteries, I guess, and a cassette, some 3 blank cassettes, which I still have right now. I still have them right now, today. I don't have it on me right off the bat, but I do have some of my tapes, some of my first cassettes. But anyway, so Hector got this, and then got that tape recorder, and he began recording music off the radio. And so that's what he basically wanted one of these recording things for. To record, because he wanted to go with the trend with recording music off the radio, you know, like you'd put in the cassette back in our day, put in the cassette, and then when a song that we like comes on, it's like the radio, well anyway, when a song would come on, we would have to wait till the song comes on, like Mighty 690, then the radio station, when the song comes on and we want it, then we would press record, and then it would be recording it. We record it, and we would wait till the song ends. Then we would stop it, and then we would have to rewind the tape, like I am now. And like if we wanted to play back that song we just recorded, we would rewind the tape until like maybe about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then we would stop it and we would play it, to try to find the music that we just recorded. And then when we're done playing that music, we would fast forward to the end of that song and get ready to record the next song off the radio. We'd be listening to the radio all day long, trying to wait till they play the song we like, and then we would record. We would press record, and sometimes we would have to hurry up because that song is coming on and I want it badly. Yeah, that's what we used to do. I mean, and a lot of times, you know, like sometimes you would turn on the radio and there's a really cool song that we've been waiting to get, and it's like it's already played like maybe a minute through it, and then we would still record that part of the song anyway because it was hard to catch that song, you know. That's what we said. I had a lot of cases like that, and a lot of times too when I used to record music, I mean, like sometimes the reception of the radio was bad, and so like sometimes the songs would come out bad because the reception was bad, and then or we were in a bad location and the reception was bad, so we would get a bad recording. Or sometimes the cassette heads were dirty, like the little thingies that play the cassettes, they're dirty. And back then in the early 80s, we didn't know much about maintaining these tape recorders, so we used to have a random bad recording, and we were puzzled for why we would have that, you know. But anyway, and besides, you know, these tape recorders were not anything sophisticated, so I mean, like if you wanted something that would record really good, you had to spend big money on the stereo equipment. But these are like the entry level tape recorders. You know, this is what many people had, you know, back in the day, in the early 80s. Now where we used to obtain music. Well, that's basically how we used to obtain music, through radio. We used to record off the radio, you know, basically. I mean, but for some people, of course, they had record players, or they would buy, or they had 8-track players too, or they would buy cassette albums, you know. We used to buy those cassette albums, and I think I have some here. So as you see, for another purpose, another reason why Hector wanted these recording things too, was so he could go with the trend to buying cassettes, you know, buying audio cassettes. But some people did records, but we didn't have a record player back then. We only had cassettes. We only had the ability to play cassettes. But for the most part, we got our music recording off the radio. You know, that's where we got all of our music, or that's where I got all of my music back in my day. That's where I got maybe 95% of all music that I got. I recorded it off the radio, or maybe 90%, maybe. Well, still though, that's a lot. I mean, I was dependent entirely on radio to get all of my music, or the other 10% were off of friends' records, you know, which we didn't do a lot of back then, because it was expensive for me back then, because $10 per album back in the day, but that was $1980, you know, that was 1980s dollars. So in today's money, you had to pay $20 an album to buy, like in today's money, $20 for each of these albums. And a lot of times it was just for one song, you know. Many times, you know, it would be these albums that we'd buy because of that one song that we want. But I used to think to myself that why buy the album when I can just record it off the radio, you know. And then, you know, that's how I used to think of it. Well, it's not really so much that, it's because I really didn't have the money. I was a kid back then, you know, and we didn't have the money to do that stuff. But, you know, so for me, like Hector and Arnold liked a recording thing, or this tape recorder, a radio cassette recorder, a boombox, as we call them today. This boombox. Hector and Arnold basically liked the boombox. They liked to have one of these for recording either off the radio or playing album tapes. Well, it's just all music, all about music. But for me, though, like I mostly wanted one of these for recording voices, though, just recording myself and 1981 vlogs or audio logs. I have them. I have those tapes too. I still have them. I still have all of my voice recordings, and this is one of them. I think I already posted one of these cassettes on YouTube the other day, the whole tape. Or I'm planning on posting some of these voice recordings. And this by the way is my second cassette that I ever owned in my entire life, and I still have them. I still have them. See these? And then for me though, back in my day, I mean, I used to like to use the tape recorder for voices, but I liked music too, so I used to record music too. I mean, that's where I did all my recording of music. And then of course I had a little collection of music, you know, like a lot of collection of music. And then of course I did a lot of mixing of music with voices, you know, my voices. I mixed a lot of cassettes with music and voices, you know, like on this tape, for instance, you know, I was 10 years old when I had this cassette. I wrote all this when I was 10 years old. So as you can see it, like some of the things that I put on here, I put voices, and then I was like listing the songs that were on it, and then including, I used to put song C, song D, to make it cool, because since I didn't know the names of a lot of those songs. And sleepy songs, I used to call, I think that was Emotion by Samantha Singh. And then song D there, Bells. I called it that because that's the song Rapture, you know, because it has the bells in the background, you know. That's how I used to name that. And Too Hot, the song Too Hot by Kool and the Gang, Upside Down. I'm not, I mean, I know Whip It, and then Pop Music by M. That's good. That's a good song. I like that song actually. Pop Music by M. And then, you know, like, and then going on to the later years, I would ask my mom to buy me more blank cassettes. And then with this cassette, I recorded songs off the radio using a tape recorder exactly like this one. I had one exactly like this one in 1981. My mom bought me that, or my mom and my dad bought me this radio because I wanted one. I wanted a radio cassette because I used to have just a tape recorder, like one of those cassette recorders, those little handheld things. But I wanted something that can record off the radio, or with a built-in radio, you know. So I got one for Christmas in 1981. My mom and my dad bought me one like this for $99 at FedMart. And so I was so happy because this tape recorder was, I mean, it was considered something really cool because two speaker models, because the typical ones are one speaker, and these two speaker models, I thought I looked so cool with it because, you know, that was a cool type of radio to own because you looked cool with the two speaker model. And then, of course, well, back in the day, people were not really fond of black-colored radio cassette recorders or boom boxes, but, you know, the silver-colored were more popular. Any silver-colored with chrome and stuff was more popular back then, you know. But that's what I got for Christmas, and I was really happy with it, you know. I was super happy with it, you know. I love that radio, you know, and I have it right now. I mean, I bought this one on eBay like maybe a few years ago, and it brings back memories, you know. I mean, it's a lot of memories. But back in my day, Hector and Arnold was still recording off of the radio because that was like the easy and inexpensive way to do it. And for me, I was dependent entirely on radio up to this point. But along the way, it's a few cassettes that I bought with my allowance, and Hector bought a few cassettes too. Sadly, though, I mean, I got rid of some over the years, but I kept a number. I kept a lot of them, though. But I mean, this is one of these. I'm gonna show you one. I mean, this one, and where's the other? These two right here. This is what I was talking about right now. These two cassettes. These particular cassettes, these are the original cassettes from 1981. I mean, my brother Hector, he had bought a cassette, this cassette right here, a cassette of this, Van Halen, Women and Children First. He had bought that tape back in 1981 when he first got his tape recorder, well, that Sony one that he had. He bought that cassette for like $10, if I remember, and then his neighbor offered him a trade. You know, he offered him to trade these two cassettes, which as you see, I still have them right now. He offered these two cassettes and a little bit of cash for that Women and Children First cassette that he had. And so he took the trade, and apparently these are the cassettes that I still have since that time. And he took the trade, and then my mom got mad at Hector later on for doing that, you know, because my mom bought him that cassette. But it was like my mom got mad at Hector because it's like she took it like he gave it away, that cassette. But that was not the case. But anyway, I mean, but later on in the years, I mean, I bought this cassette. I don't even know if I have some of them anymore. But well, I mean, I remember I bought Rod Stewart. I bought a Rod Stewart cassette. I think I don't have that one anymore. Well, I mean, and then this one, I bought this one going on to 82. I bought Pac-Man Fever and Men at Work. I don't have that cassette anymore, but I mean, anyway, I mean, I bought some of these cassettes, you know, some of these. I remember the Clash going on to 83. I bought the Clash cassette, and I bought the what's the name of that other cassette? I remember Rocky 3. We bought that in 82, 83. Bought the Clash, and I bought two cassettes one time. I bought the Clash and it was at midnight work, I think it was. I bought those for $20 for the two back then because I had allowance, you know. I wanted to be cool back then to buy these cassette albums and everything. And then one day, and then we would go to these and then like it was common for us to come across jukeboxes, like when we would go to the pizza places. Like it was this pizza place that we used to like to go to, Pizza Unlimited, over and I think it was in Covina somewhere, but and it was typical for us to go to these jukeboxes, and those places had arcade games too, you know. And then one time I went to the jukebox and I paid like 10 cents to play the song Should I Stay or Should I Go? And then I'm all like saying, why should we pay 10 cents to play that song if we already have it? Or I used to just say to myself, well, I mean, we have that song and we could play that song all we want for free on our tape, because I have the album and I could play that song whenever I want for free, you know. That's how I used to look at it back then. That's how I used to think of it back then. But like going into the mid 80s, now when we're talking about the mid 80s, I was still doing radio. I was still dependent entirely on the radio. But by that time, in 1983, I got my radio cassette. I got a shelf stereo system with a record player, and so these records, well, it was now becoming a trend to buy records, but we were pretty limited though because we didn't have a lot of money. And this record here is one of the very first records that Hector bought in 1983. It was one of the first records ever that we bought, and I think we paid like $10 for these. And this is some of our first records, just some. I still have them. I still have most of all of our first records. This is just some of them, you know. Now this is like kind of like mid 80s that we bought this and that too, you know. This is the example, but but now, like whenever, like, well, I was still dependent entirely on radio to get all of my music, to get everything of my music. But you know, I know I had some mishaps. Like I know there's like in the early 80s, I know that since I had a lot of songs that came out bad because I was not good with how to manage the reception of the radio, and I wasn't satisfied with it, so I wanted to go ahead and erase the song and record something over it, you know. But the thing is, it was kind of tricky to do that, because we don't know if we're gonna accidentally erase the next song while we're doing that, you know. So you had to be good, you had to be sure, you know, like. And of course, it was tricky to do that, you know, on our days. But anyway, there's two or three songs in particular that I remember that I regretted erasing because I never heard the song again until like 20 years later. One song, it was called, what was the name of that song? It was called Take It Easy by Lacey Delkin, it was a country song. It was a song I really loved. I recorded that song and it came out really nice and everything, but I recorded on a cassette where I had a lot of mess up recordings, and so I wasn't satisfied with how the music was coming out on my cassette, and that was like the only song that came out good. So I said to myself that I'm just gonna start the whole tape all over, make quality recordings this time. But the only problem though, that I have to start all over again with like picking out or just waiting until they play a song I like. But it was never any particular order that they used to play the music. So and then I was so sure that they were gonna play that song again, no problem. I was so sure, no problem, you know. So I figured I'll just wait till they play that Take It Easy song again, you know. And so I was confident. So I went ahead and erased the whole cassette. And this is the tape in question. It's one of these in question. I think it might be this particular one, or I think it might be this particular one, or I think I have it it was like one of these, an ADC cassette. Well, anyway, I mean, so I decided to re-record the whole, erase everything and start all over. And so, sadly though, I mean, I had to put in a different set of songs on the cassette. They were not going to be the same ones because they play them in any order, you know. So, well, anyway, sadly, that song, I never came across that song again, that Take It Easy song. Never came across it again, and from that point on, I was pissed off at myself for erasing that song, because I really loved that song. You know, I loved it. You know, and I never heard it again since then. I never heard it until like in the late or in the mid 2000s. You know, I didn't hear it until then. Now, thanks to the internet, I was able to track down that song using just the lyrics, you know, using the lyrics in my mind, you know. So yeah, well, that's the beauty of today versus 80s, if we're talking about that. Now, anyway, so back then, and another song that I regretted erasing, it was this song called Bobby Sue by Oak Ridge Brothers, or if that's the name of the group. I remember that I recorded, that was one of the songs that I erased on that tape, because I mean, I only recorded a part of that song, because I mean, like, the song came on and it was a song that I liked, but it was always hard to get because they didn't play it much. And so that song came on like the moment I turned on the radio, and I was too late to record the whole thing. So I just recorded part of it, which I do have a lot of situations, a lot of times when I did that, when that happened to me, when I only recorded a part of the song, because, you know, I like the song and they don't play it that much, and so I wanted to at least catch that part. And so it was a part song, it was only a part of that song I recorded, and I wasn't happy with it, so I just wanted to erase that whole tape and start over, and I was sure that I was going to be able to catch that song, but this time being the whole thing, you know, from the beginning. But sadly, that happened with that song too. I mean, I never heard it again since then. Never heard it again. And it was not until like 20 years later that I came across the record. You know, I was like shopping thrift stores in the mid 2000s before I first started getting into the internet. I was buying a lot of records, and I was buying a bunch of these records for cheap, and then I came across that record that had that song, the Bobby Sue song, and I was so happy to find it 20 years later. And another song that I was really sad about losing because I was never able to track it down since I didn't have any internet and stuff. I was never able to, I mean, like, if we lost music, if we accidentally erased a song that we recorded off the radio, it was going to be hard to find it. It was going to be hard to get that song. Especially if you didn't get the name of the song, it was going to be hard to find the record of it. I mean, it was difficult. We didn't have any internet, so I mean, for me, I mean, I had to really hold on to my stuff. Really had to hold on to my music, because if I erased it by accident, or if I lost the tape, I'm shit out of luck. That song is going to be gone for good. Because I mean, because you figure over the years, the song, the albums will not sell anymore, because they're not going to be, because they're getting old, you know, they're getting outdated, you know, so they stop selling those albums. So going on to the later years, especially music that I didn't know the names of, I had to make sure that I held on to the cassettes really good, because if I lose the recording, I was shit out of luck. And even if I did know the name of the singer, I would not always be too lucky finding the record. I would have to hop stores to find that record that had that song on it. But that was hard. So anyway, I mean, those were some of the horror stories that I would have to say. And back in our days too, I mean, like, when the breakdancing music came out, you know, like, I mean, like, the only way we were able to obtain that good kind of music is through friends who had those records, because they did not used to play some of that music on the radio. I mean, they did play some, but not all of it. But, I mean, we used to have to know somebody who had those records to record the music off of, you know. Like, we had to know somebody. and well, of course we obtained some ourselves. We obtained a few records ourselves, but it was pretty expensive to do that back then. So I was kind of dependent on friends, you know. But of course I had the challenge of the friends not wanting to let me record the music because he didn't want everybody to have that same music. So back in the day, I mean, well, anyway, so that's how we used to do it, you know, like for the music, mid 80s, and going all the way through all of the 80s, basically. I mean, how I used to do music, I did music all through radio. I was dependent entirely on the radio, recording music off the radio entirely. For me, that was me. But Hector and Arnold and friends, well, they used to have other friends that would have music that they could record off of. Or they didn't do a lot of radio, but they knew a lot of friends with the records, and they would record off of their records, you know. And then, well, you know, like in the shops, like we used to buy the record, like they used to have the records or cassettes. They were $10 each, regardless if they were records or cassettes. And of course, they had plenty of blanks, like so you could record your music onto blanks. But for me, I used to be dependent entirely off the radio. And then, of course, I had a bunch of songs that were part songs because I was too late to press the record button. And a few songs right now I still have that I'm still trying to find the titles of. And you know, since that time, you know, like in the 80s, right now, 2018, I still have some songs that I'm still trying to find the titles of. Well, anyway, so going through the 80s, so that's basically it right there. I mean, that's how we obtained our music. We mostly recorded off the radio, or we got our cassettes. We got our cassettes and records. But in the early 80s, or going on to the mid 80s, like the technology, I mean, when we had the, we were not able to record off a cassette, you know, back in the early 80s. We were not able to do that because we didn't know how to do that. We did not know how to connect tape recorders to one another to do that. Or I didn't know much about doing that. And as much as I would have loved to record off other cassettes, especially those songs that I had to be on a lookout for, not to lose. I wanted to copy those cassettes, but I had no means of, or no way to do it, you know. I had no way to do it, or I just didn't know how to do it. So I had to rely on each individual cassette that song was on, and I used to play my music by inserting each individual cassette that had that song that I liked, and then I would gather up maybe say 10 tapes or so, 10 or even 20 or whatever, 5 or 10 cassettes at a time in my hand, and then I would get the cassette that has a song I really like, rewind it, forward it to the song. I would play the song, and then when I'm done with that song, and if I want to hear it again, I would rewind it and play it again, or if I wanted to play that certain part, to play that part again. And then when I was done at that cassette, I would take the cassette out. I would take the cassette out, put in another one that had the song I had that I liked, play the tape, wind it, and then play the song, and then I would be dancing to it, or I would love it. I'd be loving it. I would be just enjoying my day with the song. And then when I'm done, I would flip over the cassette. If another song I like is on the other side of the cassette, I would rewind it to the beginning of the tape, and then I would be playing it loud, and I would be all dancing and be all enjoying the music and stuff. And then when I was done with the cassette, if I wanted to hear another specific song, I would put the cassette away, and then I would go to the next tape that has a song, that has another song that I like. And that's how I used to do it back in the day, you know. And then if I got the wrong cassette, I have to go through the trouble getting the right one. So I'm wondering, yeah. And then I would have to wind it and forward it. Let me see, I wonder if there's any music. Another a part song that I got that I really loved, and I recorded it on this cassette right here, this original cassette. I recorded it on this cassette. It's called Eggplant by Michael Franks. It's a song I recorded as a part song, and another song I really liked that I recorded on the same cassette. It's called Sea Samba Run, and it's by damn, I forgot the name of the guy. It's an instrumental song. Taylor, or damn, I forgot his name. Peter Cater. It's a song I really loved. I only recorded those two songs as part songs, you know, because I was late to record them, played, and then it's like, I mean, I enjoyed those songs for like 20 years, even though I only had a part of it. And then it was not until like 2006 when I had internet access and when I was able to Google down the songs, I was able to Google the names of the songs or by the lyrics, and it popped up right there. Or later on, I was able to use the music identifying service, and I was able to identify Sea Samba Run, like in the later years, going on to the late 90s or 2000s, you know. See, I tell you, I mean, the technology then let me do all that stuff. Back in the 80s, I was shit out of luck because those two songs, I mean, I had no clue of the names of them, and so I was stuck with those part songs in the 80s. Sadly, you know, like nobody knew the names of them or something. I mean, I had no clue. So, and then plus, they probably would not have had the record anyway. So it was tough when it came to things like that in the 80s. Yeah, so that's how music was in the 80s, all through the entire decade, 80s. I mean, that's how my music was through the entire decade, 80s, and even going on to the 90s, it was like that too. Even through the 90s, it was like that as well. Speaking of the 90s, like a song I really liked, it was an oldie song called It's Too Late to Turn Back Now by Cornelius Brothers. I never got that song because the radio almost never played it. And I wanted it so badly, you know, like I really loved that song, you know. And so sadly, I was never able to get it, you know, sadly, because I didn't know who sang it at the time. So, I mean, even if I knew, it would be tough to go to the record stores and find the record. It was tough to do that, you know. We didn't have the internet back then to Google down the name of the song, or even, how we call it, we didn't have the technology to identify music by using the phone and stuff. So it was tough back then, but I lived through it, you know. I mean, I lived with those part songs that I really liked, you know, back in the day. I mean, I lived through it, but today I was able to get them, and then I'm so ever happy to get those songs for that instance, you know. So, I mean, this wraps it up for this video. This wraps it up. So I'm telling you, this is how it was for me in the 80s and for the music. You know, that's how I dealt with music, and that's how I collected music, or that's how I obtained music, and that's how I lived my music life in the 80s, you know. The records and cassettes, I didn't do too much of, you know. I mean, I didn't buy too much cassette albums or record albums because it was expensive to do that back then. So instead, I did everything by radio. I did everything using the radio, recording off the radio, you know. And then, of course, you know, remember how we call it, the freestyle music. I tell you, I love that music, you know. I tell you, I mean, they played all the good stuff on the radio, so it was easy for me to obtain all the good stuff on the radio because they played everything on the radio back then. So, I mean, I used to get, and then, of course, you know, Noe, like my neighbor, like the tape some of the videos you've seen. I mean, he was a DJ in the mid-'80s, so he used to obtain a bunch of these records. And so, I mean, so, like, in those times when Noe was a DJ, I mean, he had DJ'd, you know, he bought, like, turntable, like these Technics BD20s, like these are the ones that you buy for a home stereo. And he was a DJ, and so he obtained a number of these freestyle music records. And some of those songs, they did not play them on the radio, and I wanted a recording of them, but it was a challenge for me to get a recording off of his record, because he did not used to like for me to record his music, because he wanted to be the only one who had that cool music. And one of those songs that I really loved, that I really wanted to record off of his record, but I never did, not until later on, when I got the CDs later on, in the later in the life. Well, anyway, like 2 songs out of random pick. It was File 13, Tastes So Good. I really liked that. I liked the beat. I did not care about the lyrics for the most part of any song. I just liked the beat. But that's an explicit song, but it's I like it though. I mean, Tastes So Good by File 13. Know You Had the record, and I really loved that song. And I really wanted to record it, but I mean, I didn't want to ask, because I knew that he would tell me no. So, I mean, I was shit out of luck there, because there was no internet I can go to get the song off of, There was no internet there, so I was shit out of luck, so I couldn't get it, Unless the radio played it, but I mean, so I was shit out of luck. And then another song that I liked, it was JD, it was like, I guess the group is called JD Mixer. I mean, it's like it has a song Taps. I mean, My Forbidden Lover. It's like a mix. It's kind of like a mix. JD Mixer mix. And I liked that particular version of that song. The My Forbidden Lover. I love that song too. I mean, he had that record, and on that JD Mixer mix, I wanted that particular mix. But of course, I was shit out of luck on that one too, because I didn't want to even ask. I didn't want to ask, because I knew it would tell me no. So I never got it. I was never able to get the song, and there's no way I can get that song unless, it would take a lot for me to be able to know how to get that song otherwise. So I was shit out of luck then, unless I knew friends that knew that song, and even if they did know it, like only a few select record stores had that album, so I was shit out of luck then. So apparently I was never able to get that song. I never got it on tape, I never got it apparently. And it was not until just in the recent 5 years that I actually got that song, that I finally got it, off the internet though. Yeah, it took until now, until just 5 years ago. Yeah, see, that's how it was back then, 80s. It was a challenge. It was a challenge. Music, some aspects of music was a challenge to live by, to live through. Now today, when we're talking about music today, any new music that's popular right now, anything that pops up right now, you're gonna be able to get the song instantly on your phone. You got your music identification service on your phone, Shazam. You just tap that and instantly you have the song. You don't even have to record any songs. You just download it you just buy the song and download it. Or you could just play it on YouTube instantly on your phone, You like a song, you Shazam it, and then you can play it on your phone instantly on YouTube, I tell you, it was nothing like that in the 80s. Nothing like that. In the 80s, even if you did have the music, the only way you can really instantly play that song is if you had a cassette already recorded with that song, and you had your portable cassette player in your hand, or you brought one of these with you everywhere you went, or you brought the cassette with you, and the person you're visiting has a stereo or something. I tell you, it was a challenge, It was a challenge, for the music aspect. Well, 80s was more challenging on that part, too. Obtaining music was a challenge. Or the music, just how we lived with the music was a big challenge in those days. I tell you, well, so this wraps it up. it wraps it up on this video. I hope you liked this video. If you want any more subjects, you could tell me. I mean, well, this is all about music, you know, how I lived my music life, you know. I tell you, I mean, I can remember the challenges. Like, the biggest challenges for me was being able to obtain, like, some music that I really liked. Oh yeah, and another song that I regret erasing, it was called The Piper by ABBA. The Piper, I love that song, man. Yeah, I really love that song. I mean, I had a recording of it, and it came out bad though, right? It came out bad. So I decided that I wanted to erase the whole cassette or that song because I didn't like how it came out, and I was confident that it was going to come on again, no problem. But it never did. I never heard it again since then. Never heard that song again. And it was not until like 20 years later that I came across that record of the ABBA, The Piper. I tell you, I mean, see, that was a big challenge that I had in the 80s, you know, back in the 80s. That was a big challenge, you know. So, I mean, today, I no longer have to deal with that challenge, you know. I don't have to deal with that today. Obtaining music, it's just going on the YouTube and just going on the internet and searching for the top songs, and we could play them instantly, like without having to wait for the radio to play it, you know. Or if the radio is playing it, or if the radio is gonna play it, we would be able to identify the song and then play it instantly on YouTube, you know. Okay, well, I guess this wraps up for this video. I hope you liked it. So, I mean, now, alright.